Good day, students. So for this lecture video, we will be discussing about fundamental trigonometric identities. Okay, so for our objectives, we have, so isa lang yung objective natin, that is to apply trigonometric identities to find other trigonometric values. Okay, so before we prove or apply the different identities we have in this lesson, let us first differentiate identity and conditional equations. Okay? So when we say identity equation, so these are equations, or an equation is an identity equation when an equation is true for every element in the domain of the function, or for every value of the variable. Okay? So, totoo yung identity equation for any values of the variable in the domain. Okay? So, for example, we have 3 times the quantity x plus 2 is equal to 3x plus 2. Okay? So, kahit anong value yung isubstitute mo sa x in this case, pareho yung lalabas on both sides of the equation. Okay? We also have the quantity a minus b squared is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay? So, kahit ano yung isubstitute mo sa variable a and b, the value on both sides is the same. Okay? Or are the same. Okay? Now, before we proceed with the conditional equations, for identity equation, we have the identity element. So, meron tayong tinatawag na identity element. So, for addition, or kung ang operation is addition, the identity element is 0. Okay? Because any number added to 0, di ba, does not actually change the value of any of the other numbers in the operation. So, magdagdag kasi, for example, 1 plus 0, the answer is still 1. Okay? Also, for multiplication, or if the operation is multiplication, the identity element is 1. Okay? Kasi as any number in any operation multiplied by 1, okay, hindi siya magbabago. The value is still the same. Say, for example, 2 times 1 is still 2. 3 times 1 is still 3. Okay? So the identity element, if the operation is addition, so 0 identity element. And kapag multiplication, the identity element is 1. Okay? Now, let's proceed with conditional equations. So, an equation is conditional when an equation is false for at least one value of the variable. Or ibig sabihin, kapag sinabing conditional equation, meron lang specific na value sa domain yung magsasatisfy doon sa given equation. So, for example, we have 6x equals 12. So, yung specific na value ng x na magsasatisfy lang dito sa x equals 12 is 2. Okay? Kapag ang value ng x naging 3, so hindi niya na masasatisfy 12. So kapag sinabing conditional equation, there is, okay, at least one value of the variable that will satisfy the given equation. Okay? So hindi lahat ng value ng x natin dito or lahat ng value ng nasa range ay magsasatisfy dito sa conditional equation. Okay? So also we have 2x minus 1 equals 9. So if we will be evaluating this, the value of the variable is only 5. Okay? So the only value of x that will satisfy this equation is x equals. Okay? Wala nang iba. Kasi kung may iba pa, hindi niya na masasatisfy yung equation. Okay? So I hope it is clear ano po, the difference between identity and conditional equations. Okay? So let's now proceed with trigonometric identities and formulas. Okay? So we have, in the following identities and formulas, yung theta, alpha, and beta are the angles of the trigonometry functions. Okay? So first we have the quotient identities. We have tangent theta is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. Cotangent theta is equal to cosine theta over sin theta. Okay? Ito mga identities na to, pwede natin gamitin to prove other identities in trigonometry. So mamaya we'll be having some examples of this. Okay? Also, we have the reciprocal identities. The reciprocal identities are cosecant theta is equal to 1 over sine theta. Though we have made mention of this already in our previous discussions about trigonometric functions or circular functions. Then we also have secant theta is equal to 1 over cosine theta. Then cotangent theta is equal to 1 over tangent theta. So these are reciprocal identities. So kapag tinanong din kayo, say for example, ano yung reciprocal identity ng sine, so ang gagawin nyo lang naman is to simply, or the reciprocal identity of sine theta is 1 over cosecant theta. Okay? Same goes for secant. Yung inverse or yung reciprocal identity ng cosine theta is equal to 1 over secant theta. And for tangent, we have tangent theta is equal to 1 over cotangent theta. Okay? So for the reciprocal identities. Also, we have the Pythagorean identities. Okay? The Pythagorean identities is equal to, or are, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. Tangent squared theta plus 1 is equal to secant squared theta. And we also have 1 plus cotangent squared theta equals cosecant squared theta. Okay? Maybe you're wondering, paano nakuha yung tangent squared theta plus 1 equals secant squared theta? Ang ginawa lang po dyan, nag-start siya dito. Okay, so sine squared theta plus cosine theta equals. Okay, so say for example, if you want to get tangent squared theta plus 1 equals secant squared theta, all you have to do is to divide. Sige, pakita natin yung solution. So we have sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. So to get this identity, ang gagawin natin is to divide all the terms by cosine squared theta. Cosine squared theta. Okay? We know from the previous slide, okay, sabi natin yung quotient identities, tangent theta is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. So we can actually use this one, okay, to prove the other identities. So in this case, so sine squared theta over cosine squared theta is equal to tangent squared theta plus cosine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta is 1. Then 1 over cosine squared theta is secant squared theta. Kasi di ba, sabi kanina sa reciprocal identity, secant theta is equal to 1 over cosine theta. Okay? So we have secant squared theta. Okay? So ginagamit natin yung ibang identities to prove the other identities. Okay? So I hope malinaw yan. Yung yung 1 plus cotangent squared theta equals cosecant squared theta, ang i-divide nyo sa lahat ng terms ng sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1 ay yung sine squared theta. Okay? So, let's move on with even odd identities. Okay? So we have sine negative theta is equal to negative sine of theta. So ang nangyayari dito, if we will go back to the unit circle, okay, yung positive, okay, illustrate natin. ko alam kung kasya dito. Say for example, ito yung circle natin. Okay? Di ba, say for example, this is angle 30. And dito, kapag yung rotation ng terminal side is clockwise, this will be negative 30. Okay? And, di ba yung dito sa first quadrant or yung angle na 30, ang coordinates niya ay x and y. Dito naman sa baba, we have x and negative y. Okay? So kapag kinuha natin yung negative ng angle, okay, we have negative 30. Di ba yung value na dito is negative, which is not the same with the angle on the, or kapag positive yung angle. Okay? So, we have here the sign of negative angle is equal to negative a sine of the angle. Okay? Parang nilabas lang natin yung sine ng angle na meron tayo. Okay? Same for cosecant theta, since sine and cosecant are reciprocal identities. For cosine, negative theta, so yung negative ng angle, if kukunin natin yung negative ng cosine, okay, or yung angle ng cosine, okay, kung titingnan na dito, yung coordinates ng negative na angle, di ba positive siya? Then, yung coordinates ng positive, okay, na angle, in this case, if we are referring to the cosine or yung x-coordinate is positive. So, yung value o yung kukunin lang naman natin is the positive. Okay? Kasi since both values, mag-negative man yung angle na meron yung cosine at secant, so magiging positive pa din yung values. Okay? Also, etong sine, cosecant, tangent, and cotangent are odd identities. Okay? Bakit sinabing odd? Kasi kapag kinuha natin yung negative, yung sine ng negative angle, ang lalabas yung negative sine ng angle. Same with tangent. Yung even identities natin ay ito lang. Yung cosine and secant cosine. Okay? This is even. Then, eto, odd identities. Same with this. Actually, we have made mention of this already when we discussed the properties of circular functions. Diniscuss natin yung graphs of circular functions. So one of the properties of the 6 circular functions is that sine and secant are even, okay, identities, while the rest of the circular functions like yung sine, cosecant, tangent, and cotangent are odd functions or odd identities. Okay? Also, we have the cofunction identities, which is sine pi over 2 minus theta is equal to cosine theta. Cosecant pi over 2 minus theta is equal to secant theta. Cosine pi over 2 minus theta is equal to sine theta. Then secant, wala. Secant pi over 2 minus theta is equal to cosecant theta. Tangent pi over 2 minus theta is equal to cotangent theta. Then cotangent pi over 2 minus theta is equal to tangent theta. Okay? Or kung mapapansin nyo, since co-function sila, di ba we have sine and cosine. Then we have secant and cosecant. Then tangent, and we also have cotangent. Kaya tinawag sila mga co-functions or co-function identities. Okay, so we can actually use this kapag nagpo-proving na tayo. Okay? Also, we have sum and difference formulas. Since formula na ito, we will be using this to determine the exact value of a trigonometric function. Okay, so we will also have examples of this later. Okay, so we have the sum and difference formulas. We have sine alpha plus beta. So, ibig sabihin, magkaiba po yung value ng um, angle na meron tayo dito. Okay, so iba yung value ni alpha kay beta. Okay, now to determine the exact value of sine alpha plus beta, we'll be using the formula sine alpha times cosine beta plus cosine alpha times sine beta. Or kapag ang binigay na sum and difference formulas, yung sine alpha plus beta, so tandaan nyo lang yung sin cos cosine. Kasi di ba we have here sin cos cos sin. Tapos kapag addition yung operation sa sine, the operation also will be addition for sin cos cos sin. Okay? Kapag naman negative yung operation na angle, so same pa din sin cos cos sin, pero yung operation subtraction. Okay? Ngayon, baliktad siya kapag ang sinosolve nating sum and difference formulas is the cosine. Okay? We have cosine alpha plus beta. Ang pattern naman nito to solve the exact value of the function is cos cos sin sin. Okay? So kapag sine, ang pattern natin is sin cos cos sin. Kapag cosine, cos cos sin sin. Okay? Then the operation, kapag ang nasa loob or yung kinukuha na natin na exact value na angle ay addition yung operation, pagdating sa paghanap natin ng exact value, we'll get the opposite operation. So subtraction na yung gagamitin natin. And kapag yung operation ng angle sa loob ng trigonometric function is negative, okay, sa cosine yan, ano po? We'll have, again, cos, cos, sin, sin, tapos ang operation niya na magiging addition. Okay? So please take note of the formulas and identities that we are discussing. Okay? Also for tangent, we have tangent alpha plus beta is equal to tangent alpha plus tangent beta all over 1 minus tangent alpha times tangent beta. Okay? Kapag ang operation naman is subtraction, so we have tangent alpha minus beta is equal to tangent alpha minus tangent beta all over 1 plus tangent alpha plus times tangent beta. Okay? So these are the sum and difference formulas. We also have the double angle formulas. Okay? Actually, ang daming variations nito. We have the double angle formulas. Okay, so you may just take note of this one. And nasa reading material naman din. Nasa reading material na din naman po ito. Okay? We also have, kung meron tayong double angle formulas, we have the variations of the double angle formula. So it is given by the following formulas. Okay, we have sine squared theta is equal to 1 minus cosine 2 theta over 2. For cosine, so cosine squared theta is equal to 1 plus cosine 2 theta all over 2. Then kapag tangent, we have 1 minus cosine 2 theta all over 1 plus cosine 2 theta. Okay? We also have the half angle formulas, which is given by the following formula. Okay? Then we also have the equivalent forms of the half angle formulas. Okay? Pwede nyo actually gamitin yung kahit alin dito when you are determining the exact value of the trigonometric functions. Okay? So, in this case, equivalent forms of the half angle formulas, yung nakikita niyong plus minus sign sa mga formula natin, okay? Sa mga formula natin, yung yung plus at minus sign is actually determined by the quadrant of the angle theta over, okay? So, magbe-base yung sign ng mga formula natin depende sa location or depende sa quadrant kung nasaan yung given na angle. Okay? So, please take note of that. We also have tangent. Then, by manipulating the formula for tangent, we have the following. Ito, kapag binanipulate natin itong formula na to, we'll have this 2 as the parang alternative a formula to determine the exact value of tangent theta over. Okay? Then, we also have, ang dami, di ba? The product to sum formulas. We have the following. So you may just take note of the following formula. So we have sine alpha, sine theta. Sine beta is equal to 1/2 cosine A minus B or alpha minus beta minus cosine alpha plus beta. Okay? Then we have for cosine, na bago yung operation. Then we have sine alpha cosine beta. So we have 1/2 times sine alpha plus beta plus sine alpha minus beta. Okay. Then we also have the sum to product formulas. Okay. So we have the following. Okay. So wag mo na magreklamo na ang dami-daming formulas. No need to memorize these formulas actually. You can always have a summary of these notes para mas madali na ding ma-identify. And also, meron tayong mga calculators and we are allowed to use it. So, mas madali na din siya i-solve. Okay? Sige. Let's have the proving of trigonometric identities. Okay? So, hindi ko alam kung ma-appreciate nito, pero proving trigonometric identities is one of the best thing to do in mathematics, especially in trigonometry. Okay? Lalo kapag napoprove mo na equal yung identities. Okay? Medyo somehow time-consuming pero manageable. Okay? So, to prove other trigonometric identities, so we have to show that the left hand or the left side of the equation is equal to the right side of the equation. So, dapat equal silang dalawa. And in proving identities, we can also either manipulate the left side, manipulate the right side, or you can manipulate both sides of the equations. Pwede yun. Okay? Pero I suggest, ang ginagawa ko kasi, isang side lang yung minamanipulate ko. At yung minamanipulate ko is yung mas komplikado. Okay? To prove yung simpler form. Okay? Sige, let's have some examples. Before pala the examples, there are actually tips in proving identity. So, tips lang naman siya. Okay? So, start with the side containing the more complicated expression. So, ito din yung ginagawa ko. Then, rewrite sums or differences of quotients as a single quotient. Okay? So, ang idea, pag-isahin mo lang. Pag-isahin mo as one fraction yung mga trigonometric identities or functions. Then rewrite one side in terms of sines and cosines only. Okay? This will actually help you to prove the identities na mas madali. Okay? So always, or hindi man always, express or in proving, you may express the trigonometric functions in terms of sines and cosines. Okay? Then when manipulating one side of the equation, keep in mind the form of the expression on the other side. Okay? So, most of the time, it is only one side of the equation that will be complicated. Most of the time. So, isang side lang yung mas komplikado. Okay? However, it is also possible, sabi ko nga dito sa number 1, it is also possible that both sides of the equation contain complicated expressions. Kaya sabi ko sa inyo kanina, you may prove only the left side para maging equal siya sa right side, or you may manipulate the right side para maging equal sa left side, or you may manipulate both sides of the equations. Okay? Also, improving identities, okay, or improving other trigonometric identities, always bear in mind that you are handling them not as equations. Okay? So, do not operate the identities as equations. Ano po? Huwag yung, kung halimbawa may addition, i-add nyo, hindi nyo yan ma-add. Say, for example, you have sine theta plus tangent theta. So, hindi nyo siya ma-add. Okay? So, yan. Do not treat them as equation. So, do not operate identities as equations. Hence, the different properties of equality cannot be used here. Instead, manipulate the equations side separately. Okay? So, yun po yung gagawin natin. Okay? So, let's have the first example. So, simplify muna tayo before we proceed with proving. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin simplify, we'll just express the trigonometric expression na mas simpleng tingnan. Okay? Compare dito, we have, for the first example, secant squared x over tangent x. Okay? We can actually use here the other identities that we have discussed previously. Okay? Sige, let's prove. Let us simplify. Secant squared x over tangent x. So we have secant squared x over tangent x. Okay? Dito sa secant squared x, we can use here the reciprocal identity. Okay? So we can express secant squared x as 1 over cosine squared x. Okay? Yan yung numerator. For tangent, we know that tangent is one of the quotient identities. And the tangent is equal to sine x over cosine x. So take note, meron tayong fraction sa numerator at meron tayong fraction sa denominator. Okay? So in this case, pwede nating kunin yung reciprocal nung nasa denominator. Okay? So this will be equal to 1 over cosine squared x times, yung reciprocal ng sine x over cosine x is cosine x over sine x. Okay? Now, if you can still recall, di ba yung mga properties ng equation, we have cosine sa denominator, cosine squared x, cosine sa denominator. And we also have cosine in the numerator. Okay? And using the laws of exponents, di ba? Division, yung quotient. Okay? We can cancel out cosine. Ang matitira dito sa cosine squared x is simply cosine x. Okay? Now, simplifying, we have 1 times 1 is 1. All over, cosine x times sine x is cosine x sine x. Hindi natin pwedeng i-combine yung cosine x at sine x. So, we'll just write our answers in this case. So the simplified form of secant squared x over tangent x is equal to 1 over cosine x sine x. Okay, malinaw po. Let's have another example. Simplify the quantity 1 plus cosine x times the quantity 1 minus cotangent x sine x. Okay, so we have 1 plus cosine x times 1 minus cotangent x sine x. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is to simplify the terms or the product or the factors na pwedeng i-simplify. Dito sa 1 plus cosine, wala naman tayong pwedeng i-simplify. So we'll just have to copy cosine x. In this factor, we have 1 minus cotangent x sine x. Yung cotangent, pwede natin siyang i-simplify using the quotient identity. So we can rewrite the factor 1 minus, yung cotangent, pwede natin siyang isulat as cosine theta over sine, theta, x pala, times sine x. And we can actually cancel sine x in this factor. Okay? So we have 1 plus cosine x times, nawala na yung sine x or na-cancel na yung sine x. So we'll have, or ang natitiran lang is 1 minus cosine x. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin dito, if you can still recall the FOIL method, so pwede natin gamitan ng FOIL method itong identity na to or yung expression. So, 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative cosine squared, cosine squared. 1 times negative cosine is negative cosine x. Cosine x times positive 1 is positive cosine x. Then cosine x times negative. Okay? Cosine is negative cosine squared x. Etong negative cosine x at cosine x, positive, makakancel. Matitira ay 1 minus cosine squared x. Okay? So, ang concern natin ngayon, di ba, we know that, recall, yung Pythagorean identity na sine theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. Since the equivalent form of the quantity 1 plus cosine x times the quantity 1 minus cotangent x times sine x is 1 minus cosine squared x, pwede pa natin itong isimplify. Okay? Recall that, eto, kapag transpose natin itong cosine squared theta sa kabila, this will be equal to sine squared x, sine squared theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta, which is the same here. So instead of writing 1 minus cosine squared theta, we can write sine squared theta. Okay, so this is now the equivalent form of 1 plus cosine x times 1 minus cotangent x sine x. Ito na yung sagot. Okay? Kailangan nyo lang paglaruan yung mga identities. Okay? So, nagsisimplify pa lang naman tayo para lang mas mas simple yung itsura ng mga trigonometric expressions na sinusolve natin. Okay? Sige, let's have this one. Prove the identity cosine squared x, tangent squared x equals sine squared x. So, sabi natin doon sa tips kanina, you may work on the more complicated side of the equation. Okay? So, in this case, ang ima-manipulate ko itong cosine squared x times tangent squared x. Okay? So let's have sine squared x is equal to, hindi natin alam if this is equal. Kaya we are actually trying to prove. Ano po, kung equal talaga yung cosine squared x times tangent squared x kay sine squared. Okay? Sige, let's have cosine squared x times tangent squared x. Okay? So, cosine squared x, so copy lang natin. Yung tangent squared x, pwede natin siyang i-simplify using the quotient identity. And we can rewrite tangent sine squared x over cosine squared x. Then we have cosine squared x times sine squared x over cosine squared x. Di ba maka-cancel natin to? Okay? Ang matitira lang ay sine squared. So therefore, this is what? Okay? So therefore, we have proved that cosine squared x times tangent squared x is really equal to sine squared. Okay? So let's have another example. So this one. So prove that 1 minus secant x times cosine cube x is equal to sine squared x. Baka ano na kayo, ma'am, bakit puro sine squared x yung pinagpo-prove natin? Okay? Actually, okay lang naman. Okay? Sige, since more complicated yung nasa left side, so I will, again, manipulate this one. Okay? So we have, so hindi natin alam if they are really equal. So we have 1 minus secant x cosine cube x. Okay? We can use here the reciprocal identity. Okay? So yung 1 over, yung secant, pwede natin siyang i-express 1 over cosine x times, okay? Lagyan natin ito sa grouping symbol para hindi kayo malito. We have cosine cube x. So, hindi natin alam kung equal sila. So, we have, eto, cosine or 1 over cosine x times cosine cube x, di ba? Using exponential laws or exponential laws. Matitira dito, since na-cancel yung isa, this will now be etong 3, magiging na lang siya 2. So this will become 1 minus 1 times cosine squared x. So kanina may pinakita na tayong same na itsura nito. Okay? So ibig sabihin, yung 1 minus cosine x, 1 minus cosine squared x is equal to sine squared x, which is equal to what we want to. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung 1 minus secant x times cosine cube x is equal to sine squared x. Okay? So, if you have any questions, feel free to write your comments in this video or lecture. Okay? So, yeah, let's have another one. So, prove that sine cube x plus sine x times cosine squared x over cosine x is equal to tangent x. Okay? Sige. Since mas komplikado yung nasa left side, so I'll be again proving the left side. We have tangent x. So hindi natin alam if they are equal. So we have sine cube x plus sine x cosine squared x all over cosine x. Okay? If you will notice, the numerator, okay, di ba merong dalawang terms? And the both terms has a common factor. At yung common factor nila ay yung sine x. So it follows we can factor out sine x in this case. Ibig sabihin, we have, dito ko na lang para feeling ko kasi mahaba yung solution. So we can factor out sine x, okay, times, kapag nilabas natin yung isang sine x dito, this will now be equal to sine squared x, plus, nilabas natin yung sine x, matitira cosine squared x na lang. Okay? All over cosine x. Okay? So we know that using Pythagorean identity, sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. Okay? Diba? Using Pythagorean identity, sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. All over cosine x. So it follows, sine x times 1 is simply sine x. And using the quotient identity, okay, yung quotient identity na equal dito sa sine x over cosine x is tangent x. So, ibig sabihin, equal yung dalawa. Okay? Kalimutan ko lang yun. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, they are equal. Okay? I'm not sure if there is a function in your calculators that will somehow give you the answer in this proving. Pero feeling ko wala. So, kailangan nyo talaga siyang i-prove ng malaman. Okay? Sige, let's have another one. We have prove that cotangent x plus tangent x all over cosecant x is equal to secant x. Okay? So, mas simple ulit yung nasa left side. So, secant x, dito na alam kung equal talaga sila. So, we have cotangent x plus tangent x all over cosecant x. Okay? Yung cotangent x at tangent x na nasa numerator, pwede natin siyang i-express using their equivalent quotient form. Okay po. So, pwede natin siyang, yung cotangent is cosine x over sine x plus sine x over cosine x all over cosecant x. Or pwede na din natin kunin yung reciprocal identity ni cosine x, which is 1 over sine x. Okay? Dito na ako. Now, we can simplify this one kasi one of the tips is, sabi doon, gawin yung isang fraction lang yung mga identities. Trigonometric functions. So, in this case, we have the numerator or the LCD of the numerator is sine x cosine x. Okay? So, sine x cosine x divided by sine is cosine. Times cosine, we have cosine squared x. Plus, sine x times cosine x divided by cosine is equal to sine x. Sine x times sine x is sine squared x. All over 1 over sine x. Okay? Okay, dito na tayo. Simplifying the numerator, etong cosine squared x plus sine squared x, di ba equal siya sa 1? So we have 1 over sine x times cosine x. Eto, kunin na natin yung reciprocal. Okay? To get the reciprocal of 1 over sine x, magiging na siyang sine x. Okay? So, sine x times 1 over sine x times cosine x, maka-cancel yung sine x. Ang matitira ay 1 over cosine x. Okay? And since 1 over cosine x, di ba, using reciprocal identities, this is equal to secant x, which is, so ang gusto nating i-prove is that cotangent x plus tangent x over cosecant x is equal to secant x. Na-prove naman natin. Okay? Nakukuha. So I hope you are able to follow po the proving of identities. Okay? Okay, let's have this one. So prove that cosine theta over 1 minus sine theta is equal to 1 plus sine theta over cosine theta is an identity. So ang kailangan nyo lang gawin dito, di ba? We can actually do cross multiplication. Okay? Okay, we have proceed na tayo sa solution. So to cross multiply, so cosine theta times cosine theta is cosine squared theta. Then 1 minus sine theta, sige, isa-isa yung tuloy natin. So we have, using or doing the cross multiplication, we have cosine theta times cosine theta, and 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta. Okay? So cosine theta times cosine theta is cosine squared theta. Then using FOIL or applying FOIL method in this product, so we have 1 times 1 is 1. Sine theta or negative sine theta times, hindi, mali, FOIL pala. 1 times sine theta is positive sine theta. Negative sine theta times 1 is negative sine theta. Then negative sine theta times positive sine theta is negative sine squared theta. So maka-cancel yung sine theta minus sine theta. Sine theta minus sine theta kasi 0 yung sagot. So we have 1 minus sine squared theta. Okay? We can either, okay, we have two possible answers. Either we express cosine squared theta as 1 minus sine squared theta. Pwedeng yung cosine squared theta yung i-expand nyo or ang i-simplify nyo yung 1 minus sine squared theta. So we can have cosine squared theta. Okay? So any of these two, okay, is the same. Okay? Pareho lang naman sila. Okay? So I hope you were able to follow the procedures. I mean, nakasabay sa pag-solve natin ng mga, or pag-prove ng mga identities. Okay? Now, let's have solving trigonometric values. In solving trigonometric values, ang gagamitin natin ay yung mga formula na diniscuss natin. Okay? Sige, let's have this first example. In this case, ma'am, required ba kaming magpakita ng solution if we are asked to determine the exact value of cosine pi over 2, in this case, for kahit anong trigonometric function? Actually, one of the easiest way to determine the exact value of any trigonometric function is to simply use your calculators. Okay? But since if you are asked to determine or show your complete solution, so hindi nyo naman pwedeng gamitin yung calculator to show your complete solution. Diba? Alangan i-screenshot nyo or picturean nyo yung calculator. Okay? At hindi naman din pinakita sa calculator yung complete solution. Ang ibinigay sa iyo, yung sagot na kaagad. So in this case, in determining the exact value of a particular trigo function. So one of the things that I can suggest is to in this case, etong pinag-usapan natin yung cosine pi over 2 is to express the angle given using the special angles. Okay? Kung i-input mo to sa calculator, mayroon na siyang angle ibibigay sa input. Pero what if you're asked to show your complete solution? So in this case, sabi ko nga, express the angle using the special angles. Okay? Kung kaya siyang ma-express. Like in this case, yung cosine pi over 12, yung cosine pi over 12. So iisipin mo lang, ano ba yung terms na kapag either inad natin or sinubtract natin, okay? We're talking about special angles na po. Ang lalabas ay pi over 2. Okay? So let us determine, ano ba yung mga special angles na ang magiging result ay pi over 12. Okay? So we have ang pi over 6, yung pi over 6 at pi over 2. Okay? Kasi di ba? Tama. Pi over 12 and pi over 2. If we will add this one, so pi over 6 plus pi over 2. So this will give us 12. So 2 pi plus 6 pi is 8 pi over 12, which is not equal to pi over 12. So hindi pwede yung pi over 6 at pi over 2. Kahit isubtract mo yan, iba yung lalabas na sagot. Ay, minus. Minus. So this will be 12. So 2 pi minus 6 pi. So negative 4 over 12. So hindi pa din. Okay? Kasi ang dapat makuha natin sagot, pi over 12. Okay? So hindi pwede yung pi over 6 at pi over 2. Sige, mag-isip pa tayo ng iba. We have, again, cosine pi over 12. Sige, try natin. Meron tayong pi over 3. Pi over 3 at pi over 4. Sige, try natin. Let's add pi over 3 plus pi over 4. This will give us 12, 4 pi plus 3 pi. So this is 7 pi over 12. So hindi din to pwede. Try natin i-subtract. Minus pi over. So trial and error, ano po. Pero kung medyo, sabi ko nga, kung mabilisan yung paghanap ng exact value ng mga trigonometric functions, you may simply use your calculators. Okay? Bibigay niyan kaagad sa inyo. So we have 12. So 4 pi minus 3 pi is equal to pi. So nakuha na natin yung sagot. So ibig sabihin, we can express cosine pi over 12 as cosine pi over 3 minus pi over 4. Okay? So let me just erase some of the solutions. This slide. Matagal mag-erase. Okay? So we have cosine pi over 3 minus cosine pi over 4. If you can still recall, di ba meron tayong sum and difference formulas. Okay? And since cosine ito, we will be using the formula negative. So we have ang cosine ay cos sin sin. Okay? So we have, or we will be using the formula, yung cosine alpha minus beta is equal to cosine alpha cosine beta plus sine alpha sine beta. Okay? So we have, so cosine, ang alpha natin yung nasa unahan following the formula. So we have cosine pi over 3 times cosine pi over 4 plus sine pi over 3 sine pi over 4. Ang gagamitin natin dito mga values ay yung coordinates, ang cosine pi over 3, cosine pi over 4, sine pi over 3, at sine pi over 4. Yun lang din po yung isa-substitute natin. Okay? So you may just go back to the unit circle na pre-send sa inyo nung diniscuss yung circular functions. Okay? So yung cosine pi over 3 is equal to square root of 3 over 2, okay, times cosine pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2 plus sine pi over 3, kung ito square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 3, so this will be 1/2 times, since pi over 4, 45 degrees, so pareho lang yung x and y intercepts nila. Okay? So, square root of 3 times square root of 2 is square root of 6 over 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So, simplifying the answer, common yung denominator. So, this is equal to square root of 6 plus square root of 2 all over 4. So, this is now the exact value of cosine pi over 12. You can actually check this one by trying to input cosine pi over 12 in your calculators. Ang sa lalabas na sagot is square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4. Or pwede ding magkabaliktad, yung value, pwedeng ang nakalagay sa calculator ay square root of 2 plus square root of 2 plus square root of 6 over. Okay? Sige, let's have another one. Yung cosine 105. So, find the exact value of cosine 105. So, the same lang, express nyo yung value or yung degree using the special angles. Okay? So, hanapin nyo lang. You can use or cosine 105 degrees can be expressed, pwede natin siyang kunin na cosine 60 degrees plus 45 degrees. Kasi di ba 60 plus 45 is equal to 105. Meron pa bang iba? Kung 30 naman, 105 minus 30 is 75. Eh, yung 75, hindi naman siya special angle. Okay? So we can just use 60 plus 45 is equal to 105. Okay? So again, positive to or addition, so nagamitin natin yung cosine alpha plus beta is equal to cos sin, so cosine alpha times cosine beta minus sine alpha times sine beta. Okay? So we have cosine 60 times cosine 45 minus sine 60 times sine 45. Okay? So again, cosine 60 is 1/2. Okay? Cosine 60 is 1/2 times cosine 45 is square root of 2 over 2 minus sine 60 is square root of 3 over 2 times square root of 2 over 2. So 1/2, 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2 over 2 times 2 is 4 minus square root of 3 times square root of 2 is square root of 6. 2 times 2 is 4. So simplifying the answer, this will give us square root of 2 minus square root of 6 all over 4. So this is the exact value of cosine 105 degrees. Okay. Gets? Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below the lecture video. Or you may simply ask your teachers about this one. Okay, so let's have the last example. Find the rest of the trigonometric functions given tangent beta is equal to 1/3 and the value of the alpha is between 0 radian to pi over 2 radian. Okay? You can actually use the Pythagorean identity here. Yung 1 plus tangent squared theta is equal to secant squared theta. Pwede nyo itong gamitin. Or pwede din naman gamitin ninyo yung formula natin na since tangent yung given dito. Recall sa unit circle, tangent theta is equal to y over x. So we may assume that yung 1 dito is the coordinate of y and yung 3 yung x. Okay? Then afterwards, you can use the r equal to square root of x squared plus y. So you may use the identity or you may use the concepts that we have discussed in the circular. Okay? Sige, gamitin muna natin yung identity. Let's use 1 plus tangent squared x, beta pala, beta, equals secant squared beta. Okay? So, tangent beta is equal to 1/3. Ang idea kasi, yung exponent, okay, ng mga trigo functions, pwede natin siyang ilabas na ang mangyayari ay 1 plus tangent beta squared is equal to secant beta squared. Okay? Kailangan nyong ilagay siya sa parenthesis para hindi kayo ma-confuse pa kasi ang isipin ninyo kapag ang sinulat nyo lang ay tangent b squared, baka ang isipin nyo, ang naka-square lang yung angle. Okay? So you have to make sure na yung grouping symbol ay na ipa-follow. Okay? So we can substitute 1/3 in this formula. So we have 1 plus 1/3 squared is equal to secant beta squared. Okay? So 1 plus square ng 1/3 is 1 over 9 equals secant squared. Okay? So adding 1 plus 1 over 9 will give us 10 over 9. 10 over 9 equals secant beta squared. Okay? So, since ang hinahanap natin ay yung 6 trigonometric functions, hindi naman pwedeng yung secant, merong exponent na 2. Okay? Or naka-square siya. So, ang gagawin natin is we'll get the square root of both sides. So, this will give us two possible values for second. So, we have, dito ko na yung second beta is equal to plus minus square root of 10 over 9. Yung 9 perfect square, so ang mangyayari, our answer is square root of 10 over 3. Okay? Now, take note that the given condition is that the value of the angle is between 0 and pi over 2. Okay? And this condition actually tells us that the angle is in the first quadrant. Okay? Kung yung angle nasa first quadrant, ang kukunin natin dito between positive and negative square root of 10 over 3 is the positive value. Okay? Kasi nasa first quadrant, lahat ng trigonometric functions sa first quadrant ay positive. Okay? So, ang kukunin natin yung positive value. So, therefore, second beta is equal to square root of 10 over 3. Okay? Sige, let me just erase some of the writings. Sige, wait lang. So, yung given na yung tangent, di ba? So, yung tangent beta is equal to 1/3. Of course, yung co-function niya is simply the reciprocal of the value. So, cotangent beta, yung reciprocal lang nitong fraction na to, so we have 3. Yung second beta is positive square root of 10 over 3. Therefore, the value of cosine beta is equal to reciprocal nito. So, we have 3 over square root of 10, rationalizing the denominator. So, ang gagawin natin to simply multiply square root of 10 over square root of 10. So, this will give us 3 square root of 10 all over 10. So, ito yung value ng cosine beta. So, paano yung sine? We can now simply use here the okay. Pwede natin gamitin ulit yung Pythagorean identity na sine. O, ilabas ko na yung yung exponent. Sine squared beta is equal to 1 minus cosine beta squared. Okay? Kasi alam naman na natin yung value ng cosine. So, we have 1 minus the square root of 3 square root of 10 all over 10 squared. Okay, hindi. Ang gamitin ko tuloy yung hindi na rationalize pa para mas madali din sa akin mag-compute. Wait lang. We have 3 over square root of 10. Okay? So we have 1 minus yung square root nito ay 9 over 10. Okay? So 9 over 10. So again, the square of 3 over square root of 10 is equal to 9 over 10. Okay? So So we have 1 minus 9 over 10 is, so 10, 1, 9. So we'll have 1 over 10 as the value of the right side. Okay? So since naka-square pa yung sine beta, okay, let me just erase kasi mapuputol yung ating equation. Ito, tanggalin ko na. Sabi natin, the value of the right side is 1 over 10. Okay? So, getting the square root of both sides, so magkakaroon to ng dalawang possible answer, which is the positive and negative value. So, we have sine beta is equal to positive, negative. Ang 1 merong square root. So, square root of 10. Okay? Since, again, the condition is that the angle is in the first quadrant, so ang kukunin lang nating value ng sine ay yung positive. Okay? Now, since the denominator contains the radical symbol, so we'll be rationalizing by multiplying both numerator and denominator by the square root of 10. So this will give us square root of 10 over 10. So sine beta is equal to square root of 10 over 10. Yung cosecant beta is equal to yung reciprocal ng 1 over square root of 10 or ito lang. Okay? So we have tangent, cotangent, secant, cosine, sine, and cosine. So again, pwede nyo gamitin dito yung concept na diniscuss natin sa circular functions. Sige, pakita tuloy natin yung solution. So again, we have the following trigonometric or 6 trigonometric functions. Pakita natin kung ang gagamitin natin yung circular functions. We have, so tangent beta is equal to 1/3. Since the given angle is in the first quadrant, so ibig sabihin, yung coordinates ng sine and cosine ay pareho positive. Okay? And we know that yung 1 ay equal sa y. Yung denominator ng tangent is x. Okay? So it follows, we know the value of y and we know the value of, bakit x? 3. Wait. So yung value ng x ay 3. Using the formula r, since ang hinahanap natin ay yung value ng radius. So we have the square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared. This will give us square root of 3 squared is 9 plus 1 squared is 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10. So the value of the radius is square root of 10. Okay? Sige, since given na yung tangent, beta, so we have 1/3. Yung cotangent, yung reciprocal lang naman yung value ng tangent beta natin. So this will be equal to 3. Yung sine beta, di ba, kung matatandaan nyo ay y over r. Y is equal to 1. R is equal to square root of 10. Since mayroong radical symbol sa denominator, so kailangan natin siya i-rationalize. So this will be, so this is equal to square root of 10 over 10. Which is pareho lang naman nung nasa unang solution natin. Then we have cosecant beta. Reciprocal ng 1 over square root of 10 is simply square root of 10. Cosine beta is equal to x over r, which is 3 over square root of 10. So rationalizing the value, we have 3 square root of 10 over 10. And of course, yung secant theta is equal to, yung reciprocal nito will have square root of 10 over. Okay? So pareho lang naman yung nakuha natin sa. So, kayo na lang bahala mag-decide kung ano yung gagamitin ninyong solution. If you are asked to determine the 6 trigonometric functions given a particular condition. Okay? So, you may use the identities or you may use the concept that we have discussed in the circular functions. Okay? So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. Ano po, or you may simply ask your teachers about these concepts. Okay? More examples will be given during the synchronous sessions. Okay? Sige. So, balikan lang natin yung learning objectives. So, with all the discussions we have for this learning lecture video, so we have applied trigonometric identities to find the other trigonometric values or other trigonometric identities. So, I think that ends this lecture video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.